us all.
Okay, this is gonna be a session where we as a group discuss some of the issues we are having with the current state of the game and try to resolve them. And in the case we do decide to upload it, this will hopefully serve as an example of how not to resolve things in a way that rips the group and the game apart and actually leads to some sort of an improvement. So I think we're gonna do a round table kind of thing where we should each state what we think is what are the problems and where they come from in general the game. And I think I should start. I think we have about half of the party expecting one form of gameplay and one half of the group expecting another. I know me and Epic have from the start been more or less on the same page, expecting a very sandbox experience where it's a very violent game in a way, and also the NPCs kind of there's not really any expectation of fairness so much as just having the NPCs react as they conceivably would given a situation, based on how they've been constructed. And given that this is a city filled with the kind of opportunists that were willing to attack a Sabbat domain in the hopes of vastly improving their own station, it has led to a city that is, frankly, to a large extent, willing to do crazy shit. And a lot of fuck-ups. I think a possible solution might be to shift it more towards a story aspect, in the sense that I manipulate events behind the scenes to create a situation that is, objectively speaking, fairer, to keep the players on more even footing, and tone down the difficulty. Go less with what I expect would be a strict realism in a city filled with opportunistic monsters, and focus more on something that would conceivably be considered a good story. Who wants to go?
Do we each go in turn and then comment on what others have said, or do we do?
I think this first one is basically going around and just saying what you think is,
Yeah, I think
issues.
I think we should go around first and have everyone see what is the overall view of the problem in a few short sentences, and then we'll comment. Because I think it's good to start out with having at least a basic idea of what page everyone is on.
Nodding doesn't show up well in this thing. I should stop having it as my default reaction when I'm agreeing with it.
Okay.
I don't know. Do you want to try and go left to right, or just go by vote, or?
I think. How about we
left and
continue with Jackalor if he's willing, because he already wanted to take a break, so clearly he has problems with the way things have been going.
All the way things ended up. Jack, you here?
He was here. I'm
I
not sure if
thought
he is anymore.
He
I
might be there.
thought somebody said they needed to go do something a minute, and that might have been Jack.
But he said he was back.
Oh.
Okay.
Damn it, Jack! Damn it!
Have a nice day.
Okay, let's wait for him to log back in for a minute or two, because okay, there he is.
Oh, there he came back.
Yay! Magic!
Push the talk button, it wasn't working.
Right. Yes, that explains.
But yeah, I can go next, sure. Well, I mean, I've never been any good at planning. Probably will never will be. Mostly of the time, I just do shit and then hope everything works out. Because that's how I do things. And that's how I've usually done things, and how I probably will continue doing things unless something changes drastically in me. So
I mean, we were just trying to see if what you had any problems with, particularly.
Yeah, I'm getting to it.
Okay.
So I was trying to anyway.
Yeah, go ahead. We're listening.
Anyway, so the main reason I left was because I felt like I wasn't up for the game. I just didn't think I could do it with the way I had been doing things. At least until I had developed. At least until I had a better sense of direction, which I, frankly, I'm probably not gonna have because I suck at having a sense of direction and where I'm going with my characters or anything like that. The one thing I'm somewhat good at is making shit up as I go and then and having those things work out somehow. I'm still not sure exactly how I managed to make William work for as long as he did.
It's the chantry.
Uh, probably, yeah. So yeah. And another problem is that what how do I put it? Hard thinking music. Next one, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think Demi, since you had clearly defined issues and a multitude of them, but if you could summarize.
Whew, sure. Probably. I mean, this one kind of connects on everything, but as I put in the sort of the document thingy, basically my biggest problem is what I stated as the yeet element, aka just basically a chaos with a bit of power gaming and min maxing just kind of joining in. And of course, we all do power gaming, min maxing, and of course, do our own chaotic things at times. But I think there's been a problem going on mostly with just how it's being treated with and the amount that it's been done.
Okay. So, who wants to go next? Okay, Epic, you made a noise. So, if you're willing, before Bacon
made a
did, that
mistake.
is.
I mean, I suppose I'll say two different little things. But the thing that bothers me the absolute most, it generally feels a lot like I keep getting pointed at and being told, "Oh, you're not role playing right. You're not doing this right. You're power gaming a whole ton. That's totally horrible." And I'm trying so hard to role play. I think so many things on how Vivian's mental state is and how things are working. I mean, she knew she was going to get drunk by drinking that blood mead. That I wasn't trying to say she didn't know what being drunk was. I was saying, "Oh, this is a great opportunity. Fuck, I can get drunk for this next couple conversations." Then there was the zany stuff about it, but as far as power gaming, I have dominate. Why would I focus on aspects if I'm power gaming?
Do you want that answered? A second.
Because Aspects is a scalpel and Dominate is a sledgehammer?
You might think that, but if you take Dominate to 6, there is a power that lets you do Dominate. I'm not sure if you would allow it. I think it's a different version, but there is an argument for the level 6 Elder power that makes it so any Dominate uses are then waved away by the target. So you can do that, and then you can use level 3 whenever you're doing single conversations. The most fearsome player in the that was made so far that I actually was really worried about was when Bacon made somebody with level 6 dominate.
We retconned that and he ended up not having it. At least he ended
Bless you.
not using it.
He
No, I don't
didn't
think
use it very often.
No, I don't think Alan had Dominate 6.
I thought he did.
We might have changed that when we went over the character in the form.
Yeah, because I only remember Halfdan and Vivian having level 6 powers.
Oh, yeah, I think I'm checking right now. That's an important question. I remember
he did
that I was thinking
not.
of.
Dominate 4, Fortitude 4, Presence 5, then some Obfuscate and Midst area.
Okay, so apparently that was
Look at
retcon.
what?
And we never actually do that.
Damn him.
But-
Damn him.
I actually went through the entire time thinking he had Dominate 6, and I was like, why isn't he using that? So
I'd be of the opinion Present 6 is much better.
I
And
mean, the biggest reason that Dominate 6 would make a huge deal is actually Dominate 3. Because nobody in the city at that point can generally get rid of your Dominate 3 or change it or anything like that.
Okay.
Well,
We are straying
But besides
into
that-
specific rules questions.
Yeah. Didn't mean to do it that way. But I mean, I've put a whole lot of thought into a lot of this, and I don't try and take the best options or anything like that. I don't think the sheriff is a good ally. I don't think the Nosferatus are a good ally, and honestly, I would probably get rid of them if I was trying to really do what do this the best way I could. Both of these are actually probably more of a threat to anything I try and do than about anybody else. And it, for some reason, everyone thinks that doing everything like this. I guess I seem to succeed on everything I'm doing, but fuck, man, I'm getting really stressed out about a lot of it.
Okay. Bacon.
Okay. I think that the major problem that I have is that when we started this game, I wasn't ready for it. Being a completely social game, I panic half of the time because I can't do the social interactions. When I was Prince, I was just sitting, thinking with almost depression because I have no idea on what I should do or how I should do anything. So it's something that I wasn't ready, and until my current character that I can just obfuscate, walk around and fuck with people, it's finally one character that I can actually enjoy playing. I can just avoid the social interactions that I can't handle and just have some fun.
Okay. And Lambert.
This might cut out at some point because my screen has currently frozen. People I seem to still be able to hear people, so I'll deal with this as it comes. The main issue seems to be a disconnect between what everybody sees the game as going back to. It's come up in everybody's different points, really, to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
Though, especially with yours, in terms of what you're doing in terms of trying to make sandbox where.
And you cut out.
As
Rip.
expected.
Rest in peace.
He almost had an opinion.
Bacon, could you be more racist? Okay, I think Lambert is probably desperately trying to unfreeze their machine or trying to restart it.
Probably.
Okay.
I think it'll actually disconnect when they get to the restart the machine part, though.
So, yeah. Lambert. Okay. Yeah, I think they're restarting. So, I think essentially these are kind of interconnected issues, like Lambert was saying, and we're kind of, I think, stuck in a situation where we're all trying to compensate for things, but we're pulling in different directions, and the knot essentially just keeps winding tighter. Like, I sure as hell know that I'm trying to compensate because creating a new domain is supposed to be hard, and I'm trying to maintain a certain level of difficulty. And when we have players that some of who are significantly better at dealing with chaos and actually getting vampires to work together and back them, it leads to a disbalance in power. And on one hand, we have someone who at least looks like they're not, might not be getting challenged adequately, and everyone else is drowning at the same time. So I think, like I said previously, the answer is probably to just straight up dial it down. Focus less on the sandbox and the challenges, and just treat it as a more story thing. The only thing I'm worried about there is that we're kind of played a long time in stressful situations, and it might take away from the feeling of accomplishment, and might start feeling at some point like it's a guaranteed win as long as you aren't outright suicidal. Okay, and why don't we just keep going around and see what everyone thinks, like as a summary of the initial statements?
If it's okay, I was gonna try and wait for Lambert to get here, but the second point I was going to say was that it did feel like the city was getting hit with one challenge after another, after another, after another, after another, after another, after another, ad infinitum.
Uh,
I don't think vampires would stay in this city if we're being honest at this point.
okay.
I just wanted to add that real quick. No one else?
I mean, I'm gonna agree with that. There's just a fuck ton of basically everything, and it's even better when two things hit you at the same time, some being affected more than others. But going on to a sort of previous kind of statement where, you know, the whole chaos and things, I would personally be for the whole downing of difficulty, simply for I think it was even from character creation, simply because we were so invested in character creation that role play is going to be a very hard thing. And of course, you can role play in a chaotic environment definitely easily enough. But personally, with seeing how, first of all, more older vampires are supposed to work in things, a more static, slower approach, and just build your character that way, I feel that's something that I would be more glad for looking forward to.
When I was designing my character and thinking about how this could go, I really was hoping that's how things would go, but I honestly also kind of expected it to not, because honestly, I think we generally enjoy the sandbox kind of feel of things a lot of the time. We like being able to try and do things and go about and find ways to try and do things ourselves. So I feel that quite a few of the players were going to go for more of a, I suppose I would say, direct style of play.
Okay. Lambert, you're back.
Yes, I'm not sure. How far did I get before? Because I was talking and then I realized there wasn't any responses at all at some point, and
Yeah, you
I have no clue how
last
far I
thing I
got through.
remember was that you were saying that it all ties together and we're all seeing the same problem essentially, but
Or
from
seeing
different
a similar
angles.
problem that
Yeah.
people have a different view on what the game actually is, and partly on what this also is on what people are doing, seeing kind of the two different very different views on, say, what Vivi is doing, seeing it between kind of, oh, this is obviously power gaming, and, well, this is actually, here's a bunch of motivations, this is why, and it's trying to marry up people so they actually have the same view of what is happening and what they can do and interact with the situation. Both Bacon and Jack seem to be the kind of slow talking, planning in sandboxy. Well, while it's not necessarily an intrinsic way of doing a sandbox, doesn't seem to necessarily work for what they feel happy doing and playing. But it's trying to marry what they want to play in a game, want to do, with how others want to play the game, without it just ending up with like what happened to poor David Gray, just getting styled on by two of the most powerful vampires in quite a distance, with the entire bit in the William Chase, the Tremere ones.
The Tremere ones, one of them was powerful, but she was Hospec specialized.
Oh, the other one was a neonate, but it's one of them. It still wasn't really winnable for him until using Destiny Point for Gargoyle and everything. But yeah, that's more kind of a system.
I honestly think he would have won it because neither were very good at combat there. But it was against him.
Yes. But it's just trying to marry the kind of the view of long-term planning and social talking with two players who don't necessarily enjoy doing that sort of thing, and how to be inclusive with that without it then going completely yeeting, which then for Epic and Demi is the opposite of what they want to do, trying to combine those. That's what I see the kind of underlying.
Mm-hmm. Jackal,
So back to whatever I interrupted.
Your thoughts?
Yes.
Share with us what is going through your brain.
Not much.
I will struggle to refrain from comment. Bacon.
Can see the point, and I somewhat agree with Lambert. I think that at least the way that I was playing and trying to play is somewhat conflicting with the people that actually enjoyed the interactions and was expecting for them.
I also want to know, I don't think these are actually necessarily mutually exclusive in terms of what's happening, but can easily end up so.
It really makes me think that big part of the thing is that a lot of these challenges end up being city-wide threats that all people need to stand up and try and deal with when they happen, instead of, generally more minor things.
I wouldn't call the riots across the entire city and part of it burning down minor, but I see your point in terms of if the people who like the plans that spans centuries and talking do that part of solving it, while the people who like action, thinking on their feet, deal with in positions to then just deal with that, be the people who are putting out the bushfires. Though that goes more towards them getting some level of sheriff position or something. I don't know.
Towns, sheriff, whip, maybe.
Yeah. That kind of immediate reaction, think on feet, don't do plans, just be good in the think in the moment, and going more towards a bit of action than trying to talk way through. It's just there's a problem, it needs solving quickly.
Okay. From my point of view,
The Jedi are evil.
yes, always, but it kind of makes it hard to have treated like that when everyone knows of a problem, especially when everyone is kind of... Well, for a large part of the game we've been divided into two camps in one way or another. And neither side would really have wanted to give way or take risks. And Vivian is kind of been able to allow people to react very rapidly and as a group to threats that might threaten either the city or a given faction. So again, I think it ties back to the idea that yes, we can go for that, but that just means that we are just making the conscious decision to step away from the sandbox aspect of it and have me actually... I don't want to use the term railroad, but let's say guide the story in a direction, keep more of a thumb on the scales to keep a certain acceptable level of yeetiness and tone that everyone can live with. And up till now I have been trying to err on the side of playing the NPC characters rather than actively guiding the story.
I don't think they necessarily with a big hint of... Actually, no, Epic, go ahead.
Well, it's kind of just, I don't think you need to have all these threats that can threaten an entire faction or a city to have pretty interesting things going on. Lambert managed to make themselves a nice little mission of, I'm going to just be trying to bring the Toreador and the Tremere together. Let's just see what needs to happen to do that. I feel like there should be other such, opportunities to be trying to make themselves of.
It's partly I'm fairly towards planning, even if that doesn't show up in all the games that I do. Just mentioning for Jack's benefit, when he in a couple of weeks is stuck with me as an ally in the multiplayer Dominions game. Sorry in advance for this. I don't actually do planning there. That's the rest of the team's problem. But it
will take some. Yeah.
But yeah, it's not the sort of stuff that it is the kind of, it's planning orientated, social orientated stuff, which again doesn't work for Wolf Group. It's there, it's apparent. Demi's more getting into that in terms of what trying to do with Benjamin, though that's been poked with holes with other things happening, but that's more of the level of the issue. Partly is those sort of things, it takes a while to do, whereas one evening of yeeting takes a lot of time outside the game for not much time in the game, and quite a lot happens. Partly because vampires are actually squishy. If you kill them, the problem goes away. Who'd have thought it?
Oh, rest assured, all the NPCs have that at the forefront of their mind. Which
Yes.
is part of the problem, because I'm playing those characters and I've seen how problems can be resolved when you kill all the Sabbat. Or all the competition.
In various instances.
And then there's it's Michelle, the it is Michelle, right? The
Yes.
Primogen
We have,
of
like,
the Nosferatu.
Yeah,
Nosferatu?
I
Yeah.
presumed. Yeah, Primogen. That's
As
one
much
of
as
them.
it was out of character, funny in terms of the antagonizing the Toreador and everything, I'm not quite sure what her angle is on all of this, on all of that, especially with including the trying to blow up the Malkavian weapons guy. I don't know.
This on to assert dominance. To boil down to a single sentence.
Well,
It feels.
hopefully she has
I
a
don't know.
backup plan.
Well, yeah. It seems closer to. Why is there a one? Is that somebody trying to? Oh, that's messages. Hey, not knowing what Twitch does. It kind of. I'd see if she was the Malkavian Primogen. That sort of behavior would be expected if with a certain kind of pranks and everything. It just doesn't feel quite as becoming of kind of in terms of the political
She has
element
no
of it.
skill in politics, and the Nosferatu are not.
Is there any Nosferatu who has better politics? How big is each clan?
I think one of them has some. One of them has a lot, but he's a fledgling.
Right. It just doesn't seem very. I don't know. It's going to be a weakness of her and the clan, but it will.
No, you're absolutely right, but
Yeah.
again, I'm playing the character, and the character wouldn't be aware of the long-term consequences of being such a fuckwit.
Sure. It's playing it to a level, so then it's not just going to. No, it's trying to marry sandbox. People can do what they want with players' decisions matter. Trying to focus on them with also having NPCs being able to plot and plan themselves. It's kind of a.
Yes,
It's not quite theodicity as a problem, but it's close.
It's awesome sandbox, and I really love the style. I really do.
Well, that's the thing. Right from the outset, I've put a lot of effort with each of these long campaigns in particular to not be like an Elder Scrolls game and try to at least approach the idea of a world that is kind of living in the background despite the players and reacts dynamically to them.
Yes, and that's.
But when the situation is
very
fucked,
hard.
and in this case we have a domain that used to be owned by the Sabbat, relatively recently, it was taken over less than 5 years ago. It's filled with opportunists, a few Sabbat leftovers, and violence is still high on people's mind. There's going strictly by the sandbox. There hasn't been a lot of time for, I think, the piece to really settle into their brains. So, yeah. I honestly, like I said, I think the part of the solution has to be me guiding the story and the consequences to cut down on the chaos. But what do the rest of you think? Demi, you haven't said anything for a while.
Is he back?
He's been here.
No, I meant he said I'll be BRB quickly like 4 minutes ago.
Oh, never mind. No wonder he hasn't said anything.
Hey, Jackalor.
I mean, yeah, I understand that your characters do the you have logical reasons for your characters doing stupid shit or smart shit. So I won't fault you for that or anything.
Hmm. But it isn't working, essentially, at this point.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Sadly not.
If I actually may say a little bit of something,
Go ahead.
I think that one of the issues might be actually a bit of a counterintuitive thing where we take the logic maybe a little bit too far sometimes with how things go. Example, Jack ended up starting a riot with a gang trying to shoot a white guy.
yeah, I think that it escalated. It
A
escalated
bit
a bit
far.
far, but there's good reason for it, and
There is. It made logical sense on how
fuck
each
you,
part
Allied.
happened.
Fuck you, Allied and Bacon, for making it so much worse. That's in terms of that's not actually against you as a
Wait,
player. There
what?
was good reasons for what you did and everything.
What I did, I don't
You
remember doing it.
He was never there. The house blew up on its own.
I mean,
But
the house didn't affect anything. It was separate business that were tied together to preserve a masquerade.
but yeah, I think that may be a bit of the issue in some ways because generally riots would not almost ever start, even in a powder keg situation, with that small of an incident. Not at least according to our actual history most of the time. There's instances of it happening, but they're pretty rare.
Okay. That's definitely something to consider under the dialing back difficulty level as well.
Well, it's trying to make sure. I think just as a minor point, the luck dice is interesting in terms of just the level of things coming up, but you have to, if you do too much of it, you can get a string of bad rolls, and if that string of bad rolls can get you incarcerated by the mages, it kind of sucks for the character. It's going with it's consistent with how your universe works and consistent with bad rolls on a luck die, but damn, it's kind of with the Jackalaw's terrible David Gray's worst night ever. It first went slightly badly wrong in terms of his hunting, okay. Didn't do the best immediate thing to get it back. Summon probably wasn't, but it just at each turn it was a logical escalation and it was an unlucky escalation. It just ended up going from slightly bad hunt to your characters in a military prison. All the individual steps were fine. It was that the entire thing in the entirety was. It's meant to be a grim world to some extent, and
But
you
yeah,
can do
I
that,
get it.
but
That's
it's getting
what
everybody on
that's
yeah
what I mean when I'm talking about
difficulty. Yes.
yeah, difficulty and fixing things behind the scenes to help the players out, keep things at a reasonable level. Because I could have just used SD Fiat to just say, no, you just get away. It's fine. But that would have gone against precedent of how we have established we run the sandbox. And that's why we need to have a discussion. If we're changing that, then I want everyone to be, on the same page and say, okay, we're changing this as a group. We do things differently from now on. We're gonna railroad things in terms of, keeping things more equally balanced and making sure no one gets fucked too hard, for example.
Yeah,
Yep.
so there's also the alternate one of trying to make sure that it's very open with that, and even, I don't know.
We've
Yeah,
Epic
sorry.
Bacon, Jackalope, you will remember how hard I tried to do it that way in Springfield, and part of that was me being new to STing, but at the same time it made everything kind of cheap and meaningless, because you were never really in that much danger, because I worked so hard to come up with excuses why you would be fine.
So I don't think we need excuses to be fine. I just think that sometimes the escalation needs to really calm down, if that makes sense. I think up to the point where the gang was chasing him, everything was actually more or less in line with Jack's little scene. And in fact, it could have been pretty cool if he ended up just having to try and face a small gang either by himself or escape them. It's when the riot started getting going that things started getting a little too crazy.
In my defense, he was running down the street calling at the top of his lungs for police to help him.
I accept your defense. I'm just saying that is definitely when it started going a bit too far.
Something else we can institute is that we just say that, you know what? You can, if it's too rough, and like maybe not on the first incident where you're just getting in trouble, but if you're already in trouble and you don't see a way out, you can ask the table for help and advice. And then we,
I would be more than willing to help people out with that if that's acceptable. I've never had a problem with it.
I've been giving advice, and half the time it's been making things worse, but that's just me being a dick.
I mean, you've admitted.
Stab them, it's
You've
fine.
admitted it.
Yes.
That's just you being a dick.
Yep. It is partly with the spectral thing, but it's, I don't know.
Well, it would also involve me kind of helping metagame a little bit, in the sense that I would, if we are moving this more towards story aspect, we can just do it like, okay, I think that would work. If you want, you can resolve it that way, and here would be the consequences. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, talking through the actions to a slightly bit more. I would mention one thing. He running down the street, screaming for police. It escalated there. It would have also been perfectly fine for him running down the street, screaming police, and there to be police, rather than it escalating into just then the gang runs, the police check he's okay, and move on. It's
heck.
I don't know.
A third option could have been no one cared.
No one cares.
Yes,
Everyone was too scared of the gang with guns. They didn't want to shoot into that.
Epic,
They're
but
gonna get
remember
killed if
that
they did.
situation. He actually rolled for that.
Yes.
That's why he had to roll to see if anyone would care.
Huh.
He got like 4 or 5 successes on it.
I think it was 6 actually.
Yeah, it was something really high. So everyone.
I didn't remember that one. Okay, never mind. That third option is not a thing.
But yeah, the 60s America, I have a hard time imagining those blacks not getting shot by police instead then.
Wouldn't they have just run when the police?
Well, they would have, but you're assuming the police wouldn't have shot them as they ran.
I'm more assuming that the police don't get there till they've actually they're actually mostly ran away.
Well,
and
again, you're talking about a situation where I would have had to put the thumb on scales, as it were, which I have been trying to avoid till now, because again, trying to run a
Yeah,
sandbox
sure,
type game.
Sure. It's just there's a level. I don't know.
No, I get it,
Yeah.
and I can certainly fix things in that way if that's how we want to do it in the future. But okay, I think we have a consensus.
If I
Approximately.
may put something forward, by the way,
Yeah, go ahead. I was just gonna ask for anyone for
feel-
any last additions.
I really feel like one of the big things of complaint on me particularly is taking clairvoyance. I didn't take it for particular things like, oh, I'm trying to deal with everything in the city. That's just how it ended up going because I couldn't think of a reason not to use it that way.
Okay.
I'm surprised.
I really
nobody's
took it
actually-
to try and just basically do a very nice and sneaky way of modifying mortals' thoughts and stuff from afar to try and help the masquerade.
Okay.
That
Well,
was
that's a
big
discussion
thing.
of individual characters and individual powers. I figured we would move on after we finish this part discussing the overall tone and how we want to change it and our overall approach
Oh,
to
okay.
this. So, Jacklor, you were saying.
I was mostly commenting on that. Epic ran into the problem where all he had was a hammer, so everything looked like a nail.
Okay.
It's fairly accurate.
Bacon? Anything to add?
I don't think so. If we are trying to, if you are on some ways moving out of the general sandbox feel, I think that only de-escalating and would be better. I don't know.
Well, I don't want to completely abandon the sandbox. What I want to do is essentially guide the story to make sure that you're
random,
more center
left branch.
stage, essentially fix things in your favor to kind of give you a layer of things tend to go your way. In those situations where you need a bit of luck to not get completely fucked, essentially.
I get what you're saying, but the way you're saying it makes it sound like.
I know,
really
I know.
What we really want to do here is that it's entirely possible for a normal person during their life, have plans and everything, walk out one day and get hit by a truck. That isn't actually fun in a role-playing game, role-playing campaign. It can happen. It's if we were doing normal world rules, perfectly normal that one of them accidentally, it's not even malice, just accident ends up dead. It's just shaving that entirely real possibility off the probability curve because it's unfun.
Yeah, essentially fixing
it's-
railroading in terms of keeping things as fun as possible and taking a step away from quite this level of realism.
Okay, yeah.
Like
Yeah.
in terms of like in the fledgling game, I'm trying to do something like that in the fledgling.
My final
And
comment
so far, the
is that
Fledglings game been really fun.
I can't know that I didn't watch, but yeah, my final statement is that I play role-playing games for escaping reality. So yeah, don't need to go full in realism.
Okay, so maybe we need to burn the Toreador clad down, what with all the coke there.
I know,
No.
right?
I mean,
That's
it's
just-
Elysium.
that's
You
just-
cannot be fucking with Elysium that much. Honestly, people are going to get pissed. It's Elysium, man.
Kurt is already pissed.
I'm surprised more people aren't pissed.
Well,
Actually, no. Actually, saying that, I'm not surprised. I think probably they are actually pissed, and they wouldn't immediately just say, I'm pissed, because that's not what they do. They plot, they scheme, and bad things happen. But
Actually,
yeah.
the only ones to be pissed would be the Toreador. But to be
and
fair,
Ventro,
that's good reason to be
and
pissed.
Tremere would be slightly annoyed. Slightly.
This mostly happened
Elysium.
while there was still a pretty decent limit on vampire
Yeah.
activities to a degree.
I mean, there was a
Well, that's
Nosferatu not
a
just obfuscating in the middle of a meeting with a Justicar. They've been obfuscating in and out to hide stuff there. It's a fairly big breach of Elysium Protocol.
Wait,
It
you can't
really
obfuscate
is.
on the medium?
it kind
No,
of
you
sent
can't
the
actually.
message
You can't actually
when
use all specs.
well, it kind of sent the message that okay, the prince seems to be okay with this. Everyone seems to be okay with this. I guess the Nosferatu are really in favor. Best support the new regime.
Or
I
wipe them
mean,
out.
I didn't even get a roll to see him or anything, but whatever.
I mean, it's the bits previously they've been complaining about the sofas and everything. Mundane stealth doesn't get you into an Elysium. If it does, there's something wrong with the Elysium.
Yeah, no, that's like I said. She's not necessarily that smart, and if you're gonna antagonize a clan to assert your dominance, well, there's some pretty roses right there.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Let's assume that the Primogen is as smart as I am, and don't know that actually obfuscating is wrong. Like I didn't until now.
Yeah. But that's one of the things in terms of the sitting. There might need to be more out of character discussion of what's happening with the NPCs and the mood of the city that some people are possibly either it's both sides. Some people are missing and seeing that as I'm annoyed the NPCs seem to be actually working against me for no reason. And other people are seeing it as, okay, this is fine. They're not, NPCs aren't reacting, therefore it's fine. Because Bacon didn't know that obfuscating in and planting the stuff was actually
Well,
something that is a breach of
Let
Elysium.
me
Yep.
comment on that bit about Bacon, because Bacon, I'm pretty sure it's in one of the books.
Oh,
That doesn't necessarily mean he knows it.
He
that's the
quite
point.
quite famously was proud for taking common sense and not bothering to read the books on printing when making a prince character.
I think it's more fun when you experience the world like you don't know anything and you're just learning as you go instead of knowing everything by
It's
reading
a
the
great
book.
learning
There's
experience.
a lot to learn that isn't in the book
Okay.
in terms of the exact NPCs and things. But again, that's a level of disconnect that can be dealt with. When Bacon's doing things, remember that he has a certain level of knowledge of the book and a certain level of not wanting to do social stuff. Therefore, when there's something happening which
Make sure he has a book and can throw it at somebody.
no, it's not make sure he has a book. Mention this what your Primogen is asking you to do is actually a violation of Elysium and will escalate. His
The
character
choice
isn't
to
that...
be obfuscated there was actually his own. That was not part of the
Yes.
Primogen's request specifically.
Just
But yeah, okay,
it was at
that's
least
more
implied,
a
but it's just
question of... I mean, I think at least two of
yeah,
us asked him,
helping.
are you sure you want to be obfuscated right there?
Be very explicit, not just are you sure,
Yes,
but explain
yes.
why you're sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Demi, any thoughts about the tone? Taking Fledgling Game as an example of what I'm suggesting we switch towards.
Oh, it's very hard to just put it like that. But I mean, it's been kind of clear that the Fledgling Game has been very much more enjoyable than the Elder games so far.
Mm-hmm.
Even in times when I get absolutely fucked, as you have experienced yesterday. But in terms of how the tone really is, the problem is sort of like also the output. Like on one point we're fledglings, but it does seem like you're, because maybe we're fledglings, a lot more generous, aka the difficulty is down. Like the sheriff actually sort of helping and fixing shit, knowing that we're fledglings and things. It just all seems to, or for example, when our group just did masterfully, and there were times where it could have fucked us really hard, but it seemed like punches were definitely pulled back just a bit. So personally, just from that motion, really going on the tone and difficulty, it does seem to be a lot more enjoyable when the difficulty is down.
I would say the fledgling game, relatively speaking, would be at about a 6, and this would be at like an 8. Tolka would be like a 9.5 or 10. Depending on how early in Tolka we're talking.
I just also wanted to point out, while of course fledgling is easier, there's also has to be, of course, the definition of difference of this one is fledglings and one is elders. So yeah, of course, elders are going to have more threat and all, but you know, there's also the limit of how much.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of the fledgling game, I've been trying to do exactly that. Like, try to create the impression of a living world, but at the same time, railroading how events go a bit behind the scenes to keep things on a more, or rather less harsh state, and keep things moving along in, well, hard to describe simply, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
So I don't know, how does everyone feel about shifting the tone towards lowering the difficulty by, you know, me manipulating things behind the scenes to keep the craziest shit just filtered out?
Should
I
go
think
as a
that
call
would be
and give our opinion?
pretty. I think that'd be pretty good, generally speaking.
I
Bacon?
Was that a sentence or just I? Because I is
I or nay, you know how.
yes,
yeah.
yes, I know. That's why I was checking because it could have been a sentence. It could have just been a sent.
Yeah.
And Jack's
In
back.
the name of the democracy, I approve the motion.
And I promise to lay down the emergency powers when this crisis is over.
Oh God.
Glory to the Republic.
If one person has ever done that, I don't
Somebody
see you
just
becoming the
delivered
next.
food to me. I'm in shock, but sorry, miss some for just a moment.
Yeah, Jacklor, how much of that did you? We were discussing how everyone feels about shifting the tone and the way I, as the ST, do things more towards how I do things in the fledgling game, Elder.
I think I caught most of it. I was only gone for like 3-4 minutes.
So, Demi and Epic said they were good with it. Bacon, I think, was saying okay as well.
Yeah, I'm okay with this too.
Okay. Well, it's gonna be sad.
I mean,
Because that will involve scaling back exceptional rewards as well to some extent. But at
I'm
the
not
same
sure
time, it's... I mean, he essentially, for now, just got given the mission with vague promises of future reward to just go and examine some Nefandi. That's not a reward. Lambert, you were saying.
I'm not sure how much, because obviously I haven't been before and with his previous character and everything. I'm not sure how much he likes the kind of yeeting crisis a minute thing and how much he just ends up drawn into it because of planning errors.
Yeah, you that is where Allied lives.
Does he want to live there, or is that just where he ends up living?
Both. Kind of.
I think it's a bit of both.
I mean, he doesn't really like living there, but he doesn't seem to understand how to live elsewhere. So if that makes sense.
Sure. So this might actually be something positive for him to be able to actually
That would
live
involve
elsewhere.
him being interested in learning, and I can't say for sure, but he has on occasion been reluctant to change his ways when presented with encouragement to do so. But we will see. Worst case scenario of the main players, we have 4 in favor and 1 not here, so
I'm a tiebreaker. Woo! Not that we've got a tie.
Absolutely. Well, you're part of an overwhelming majority. Good tie breaking.
Yay! Truly, I have done my job.
okay, let me down.
Oh yeah, we're supposed to do notes, right?
Well, I am doing them.
One.
I just so I remember.
I was distracted programming.
Fucker.
Don't worry, I'm mildly distracted putting shit in on Fantasy Grounds.
Wow, I'm so glad you
Wow.
care so much.
What commitment? And I'm just over here browsing memes. How dare you guys?
Look, I have to de-escalate my stress somehow here, okay? So I'm gonna
I
continue
mean-
escalating my stress by putting in the barbarian class.
I de-escalate by memeing the entire situation.
I would like to rage.
Okay.
Chris, I do have to show you
By the way,
something.
Chris, while I'm quickly talking about it, I totally finished up the binder class, the something class. Yes, the something class. It's ready for you.
That's
Woo,
good.
haven't we find-
I hate to say this, but I'm not 100% sold that I want to actually play it, because it might be too OP. I want to see what the others will pick. I might just go with a garden variety magic user instead.
I mean,
It's not OP. Don't worry about that.
as long as he's cut out some of the, yeah, it's probably quite safe because Epic does seem to know what he's doing in terms of system.
Don't worry. I cut out the one that made it really insane.
Oh, good,
Uh,
good.
One question. Can someone give some help for me? I'm trying to add a long unsigned int to a double, and the compiler is complaining. Why?
Because
They can ask in text chat, in Discord.
also,
By the way,
yes,
Chris,
I would.
you
I
have a
wouldn't-
president general.
Why don't we start going through what problems people might have? What the fuck? You know, you pulled a sneaky on me. Have your ban.
He had to call your attention to it is the greatest thing.
Jackalor,
Love you,
don't
Chris.
unban him until a week has passed.
What do you mean a week?
Sure.
I'm
missed
sorry,
that one
Demi.
game.
You forced my
Wow.
hand. I have warned
Wow,
you
wow,
so
wow,
many
wow.
times.
Let me just go and complain on Classic World of Darkness. Be right back.
You motherfucker. Extend that ban to 2 weeks.
Gladly.
You know, Naxi does have a point. Epic, look in the memes.
I mean, I've checked up on the memes before. What?
It's new.
Is it?
Oh, it's not.
No, it's not. You delete it?
Nope. The one Naxi posted. Unless you
I mean, I saw it a while ago.
Okay, good. I'm sorry, Demi. I can't do that. But, let's see. Which character should we start with?
Do NPCs? I presume this is just player characters.
This
and talking
is
about
mostly
them rather than-
player characters. If you don't like an NPC, call a blood hunt, like civilized vampire.
I can call blood hunts.
No, you
How?
can't.
Please tell me this power.
Well, first you have to
Can I
kill
call a
Vivian
blood
and
hunt?
every elder.
Yeah. I mean,
No,
I'm working on fucking power plays, but I'm not going to try and seize the entire city. I'm a fucking Casiad. That's not going to go down well.
just use Thaumaturgy 3, Path of Blood 3, and lower your generation, and then dominate the prince into doing Blood Hunt.
Wait a second.
That's like
Why
the
does that
least
sound
effective
familiar?
method.
I have no comment on this or my future plans for the Tremere clan.
Wait a second. Not
I mean-
again.
If Vivian keeps looking everywhere, I'm surprised she isn't just going to get knifed at some point. Dougal must be a reason why it hasn't happened, but somebody's just going to knife her with the +3 difficulty and without the heightened senses bonus to perception.
I mean, let's put it this way. At some point, someone is just gonna shoot Dougal in the head.
It's going to
I
be
hope
a
it's the
sad day.
sheriff.
It's going to be a
Hope
sad.
No comment.
It's going to be a sad day. I do like Dougal as a character to interact with.
Okay, so how do we want to do this? Do we want to go over specific powers? Or do we want to do this by player or by character? Because there are some other issues we need to raise. Actually, there is one more thing that has to deal with the overall tone we have set. We have, and this is something Demi mentioned as well, kind of created a attitude of anyone being able to question any ruling, but that hasn't really been working that well of late. And this is one of the things that I think might be a bit more difficult to talk about. But essentially, and I hate to call a specific person out, but I do find myself spending an inordinate amount of energy dealing with the idea that Epic might have a problem with something, and we need to adjust the expectation there in some way, because as is, it's not really working, at least for me. I'm pretty sure it doesn't work for Demi either, given the Google Doc.
Are you wanting suggestions or talking about it first, or because the very quick and dirty way to do it is just during a session, it's just the ruling. You make a ruling on it, that's how it goes for the session. Talk about it between sessions if there's agreement, but generally just for flow and time and everything, storyteller's word is law. If there's things you think are going to if you think in advance, I'm not sure how this power is going to play out, try to ask you between sessions and get it cleared up then.
It is quick and dirty, you're right about that, but okay, how about we start with, again, going around making sure we have everyone's input on the issue. You had a clear idea on this, Demi, so why don't you go next?
So, are we talking now individuals, characters? What's the actual...
Specifically about the arguing during the session.
About rules.
Yeah. Basically what Lambert says, it really does break the sort of flow and narrative. And simply because you also do have that unconscious feeling that you want to keep the flow in things. There's a lot of things that, due to a single quick argument or things, that things can just pass in a second and be really just in an advantage for really anybody else. So I kind of have to agree with Lambert on the sense that let's keep the things as is in the game, of course, talk about it out of the game. But there's also the problem that there's a lot of ruling things that we have to fix out of the game as well.
Okay. Epic. Why don't you give us your thoughts on the
I mean,
situation?
I told you way back before I even started that I generally
remember.
do just try and call, I try and talk to you about if what the ruling is, why it was done that way, things like that. Just it's not because of anything malicious. I just try and understand the point of view more or less. I've for a long time I was able to just keep it more or less out, especially during like Toluca, because I started trusting a lot of your rulings and that you had a very good reason for them, and we could just see what they were out of the game. During this Elder campaign, though, you've flip-flopped on a lot of the things you've told me. Like, I'm not sure if you remember, but when we were first hunting, you actually said gaining trust didn't apply to it. And recently it started applying to it, and I don't know why. You also, caretaker doesn't apply to anything that has me gain anything. So I haven't gained any willpower from my nature for a very long time, ever since becoming prince, more or less, with some exceptions. I don't really get why that has anything to do with my nature if I gain something from it. So honestly, I've just started being a lot more wary of what your
You're just
reasoning
double
is, and
checking to make sure there's a good reason.
yeah, so I've started doing it more often, and it is because I've just
Okay.
started questioning more about what you're doing, and sorry if that's getting in the way of things. It's just it eats at me when that kind of thing happens.
Okay. Bacon. Did you find a solution to your assignment problem?
No, I'm still trying to look for it. But on this issue, I think that the best solution is having a little document on the side of sheet to remember. Have house rules as they are currently, and all the arguing that we have and problems and everything. We just important stuff. We just put it there because and everything that we remember that may be
Hey,
changed.
Bacon.
Just
Very good. You just volunteered to be the secretary. I have made a new mysterious note.
But other point is that as someone that don't read the books, I just left the rule to the others because I have no idea what they actually are, and I always forget them even when I try to read them. So
Okay.
just
Try and remind you of the yeah, you wouldn't really want to do this kind of things.
yeah,
Okay.
rules are a bit of a problem to me.
Calor.
Yes.
Your thoughts?
On rulings so far,
Yes.
or
Yeah.
On rulings and
I mean,
discussing
I
them
think
within
I'm
the
mostly
session.
agree for rulings. Generally speaking, at least. But like, I don't really have much to say on it because I'm not.
Okay.
I generally don't dig into rules that much.
Okay, well, I have a compromise that should work. So how about this? We don't argue over voice, at least unless we're on a break, but we can type it in the text chat, and I will try and glance in there, and if there's something that I have genuinely forgot, I will either do a, like a short-term retcon or adjust for it, and hopefully we will be able to manage that way and find a good middle ground there while keeping the flow and keep things going, while also allowing people to raise the issues that need immediate attention, like me forgetting that, for example, someone might be old and Auspex danger. Does that seem workable to everyone?
And
Yeah.
it helps with the flow, and if the conclusion of the chat discussion is put on the new paper, I think it can work for future reference. We don't have to do it again. We have written.
I do hope you're writing all of these down as the official note taker.
No. That was your first mistake, putting responsibility in my hands.
I mean, when Kurt kills the current privilege and you have to lead the clan.
That's going to be fun. I mean, that?
I mean, I'm just half joking, but it could happen because.
I mean, look. You know what? I'll just say it. Vivian was going to see about bringing Kurt and the Primogen somewhat in a private place outside real quick, and then tell her she has about 3 days to try and make everything better, or there will be no Nosferatu Primogen seat.
Huh.
You need to find a way to get the Toreador back into some kind of decent standing in the Justicar's eyes.
Okay, you're definitely on the danger sense roll.
Hey, look, she decided to go that way.
Okay, that is something we definitely need to play out, because that should be an interesting confrontation. Okay. So that is that. I think that's the tough topics covered. So we had discipline questions we wanted to raise. Specific rules things. Ah yes, he wants to come back to the server.
God. Right.
Okay, so the thing that immediately comes to mind, because it was already mentioned, is the clairvoyance question, an idea I had. Because you should be able to use it for most of your use cases, but I feel like it should become impractical if you're trying to rapidly flip between like a dozen people to check who might be in danger. There should be some sort of an upper limit. So my idea was that essentially we could set it up like you can roll it at difficulty 6 once per scene, and each success you get is essentially one action you can do on the object you're targeted on, whether it's talking to them or examining surroundings with Auspex to see invisible things, or use an Auspex power, or in general terms. But if you use it more than once per scene, each subsequent time you use it, the difficulty keeps going up by 1. And you can still just... I'm not sure if we would still allow the auto successes to just get 1 success, because you do have enough dice to go all the way up to 10 and check in on 5 people if all you're doing is checking in pretty much immediately. How does everyone feel about this idea? I think it was Demi said that he thought it might be okay, but he's not the one actually using the power.
I really don't mind. I already explained what the particular reason I really went with it. If you remember, I was actually really debating between taking this and that one that lets you communicate with everybody as like a group kind of chat. But I ended up deciding on this one just because I figured, well, I can already chat with one person, and this lets me go ahead and try and be very nice and subtle about manipulating mortals. That second one was the real turning point, honestly. I mean, if it's really causing issues, I don't really have any problem even just not doing it and doing something else or getting rid of it.
Well, the problem is that, I mean, we're not just determining the rules for you, we are determining the rules that every Auspex Elder in this game world would use. So we kind of need to come up with a set that makes sense, rather than just retconning the power out of existence. Especially after it has already had a significant impact on the story.
I mean, that just depends how big of an issue it is. It could just be something on my part, and we can still let NPCs do it if that's what we want to go with, or if it's just something no one finds any fun with having in the world, maybe no vampire can have it.
I think...
Maybe it's a Methuselah level.
Personally, I think that it should essentially... I like what I stated as a good limiting factor because it essentially creates an upper limit, and you can't check on the entire city in like 2 minutes.
It's not why I took it initially. It's just something that made a lot of sense for the character, so I don't mind at all. That's really up to the others.
Jacklor, what do you think?
I personally like the idea of limiting clairvoyance a bit.
And what about the specific limitation I mentioned?
What was it again?
You roll the power normally once per scene. If you use it more than once per scene, each subsequent roll gets a cumulative +1 to difficulty. And each success you get lets you do one thing through clairvoyance, whether it's just getting a feel for what that person is doing and their overall surroundings, or talking to them, or using an Auspex power on their clothing, or whatever.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I agree with that. Definitely.
Could I raise an alternate possibility with it?
Sure.
Of how to change how it's being used, because with reading it, the most striking bit is the it's not in the system bit, but it requires a familiar place, person, or object. If this,
we already know that. I have eidetic memory, so I get pretty familiar with things pretty quick.
Okay. It's just this is magic rather than memorizing exactly what they look like and what the 3 sentences they've said is different from being familiar with the person. I was just raising that as a possibility that it can be used on people Vivi actually knows to a decent degree, or places she knows to a different degree, and obviously specific items, but it won't work on new arrivals or people she doesn't actually really know that well.
A thing that I have to note, and reading it right now, it's probably because it doesn't state this. But a thing that I see that from reading is that another problem with convergence is just basically okay, the idea of every time you want to switch to a person, the difficulty increases if you try to use it in the scene, blah blah. But the problem I think is that how persistent it could be. Like you could actually just be looking at somebody for 15 minutes and just do whatever, while the power it says you're rolling, and then how much you're actually dealing how much success you gain, it gives you basically one turn of looking. But because it doesn't state that it's how much you're limited to it, like you can do it maybe one per scene or maybe once per day, I don't fucking know. That's basically the cause why you can basically use it infinitely, isn't it?
I mean,
Yes, and that's why
actually,
it was.
one moment. Specifically noted in it is that you can actually roll to keep the clairvoyance on somebody. It was mentioned at the bottom, if I remember right.
Vivian has like 12 dice in that pool, so she is conceivably never reasonably gonna fuck up a difficulty 6 roll.
I mean, that is correct, but I'm just saying that's kind of what I feel like. Not really the switching around. I feel like my bigger problem is the amount that you can just maintain. That's really.
Oh my god.
Well,
Well,
I mean,
maybe we can say that you need more than one success for extended observation. So if you're just watching one person, one success allows you to watch them for, let's say, 5 minutes. And after that you need to spend another success, and once you run out of successes, you need to roll again, and at some point, presumably, you're gonna fuck up, because the difficulty will go up, or there's gonna be gaps in your observation of them.
I mean, that's all up to you guys, really. Mostly.
I think there's two different approaches here, and
Yeah, I can see the point that each side is trying to make, like including of course mine, where the power lies either from switching from person to person or just how much you can actually maintain clairvoyance. My problem personally is the amount of you can maintain rather than just going through everybody.
So maybe as an alternate limiting factor, keep it as a per turn thing, and then have it essentially be something that keeps going up in difficulty if you use it, again straight after in the same scene.
So I think that works, which was something I was going to recommend as well. Basically, the first time you're trying to do it,
a much harsher nerf, though.
It is really harsh, and I don't think I can use it for what I was wanting in that case, because sending thoughts probably takes usually more than a couple turns to adequately try and get it cemented and things like that.
I would allow it. If you had like only 1 or 2 turns, I might raise the difficulty slightly on, not on penetrating their mind, but on fooling them. But overall, provided you had a clear idea what you wanted to put in their heads, I don't think that should be a problem.
Okay, if it doesn't affect that, I'm more than fine with the ruling.
You should still be able to fuck with mortals' heads. Honestly, we can even explain it in game. The laws of magic suddenly shifted with a demon being killed in the city. Malkavian and Toreador elders are going mad all over the world because they can't see shit anymore. My eyes!
point of interest, the Malkavian elders all over the world were already mad.
That's so rude, Lamb. Don't be like
They're all mad. If they're not mad, there's something gone wrong.
Okay, so essentially we are switching this to clairvoyance, always needing... Well, actually it doesn't even always need to have the roll, does it?
I think the particular thing about it is when I am trying to, if I try to keep it on somebody instead of just glancing around, that's when I need the roll, from what I got from Demi.
I mean, if we are essentially... What we're talking about is the difficulty raising for each subsequent casting in the same scene. So you could, in theory, take like up to 5 castings of 1 success. So you could flicker through like 5 people and just
by
get a,
default.
yeah, just get a glimpse of them. But you would, you know, need to... Well, yeah, you would probably need to roll if you also wanted to talk with them or do more than just get a idea.
An idea of what's around them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a very, very quick idea of what's around them. It's not going to be very useful short of they're about to be killed by a bunch of people, but...
Rip. Just start making their tombstone in advance. So we're
Exactly.
okay. So I need to start writing the obituaries for tomorrow. Okay. All right. He's about to stabbed in. Oh wait, stabbed in the street.
You know, we have the Dwarf Fortress approach. Just make sure that everyone has a tomb assigned to them in advance.
That's
Morbid?
not morbid at all.
I mean, it's vampires. If you already have a tomb, it's your home and everything. What are you doing?
Okay. So that's an idea of how to nerf or rebalance that. Okay.
To be fair, it's horribly balanced as is.
I mean, it's not near the worst contender of different powers, but
Nope, it isn't.
This is vampire.
It's really impressive, though.
Okay. I had another idea about a power that could use some love. Presence 4. We already changed it that you only need to spend willpower or succeed on resisting it once and it counts for the night. Because otherwise it's insane.
That how it does work?
That's not how it works.
One quick point. With my kind heart, I started the rule discussion file. So put the conclusions of the talk we just had on the file, please. So we can already start defining stuff.
Where's the file?
On the game.
Wow, Bacon, such high effort.
I mean, I actually set up a recording program that'll convert it into. I think it can convert it into words. It's the end and scribe it all down. I've only got the clairvoyance talk so far and the stuff that's presence one. It might work, it might not. This is literally new software to me. It'll be fun to see how badly that goes.
Okay, we're getting distracted. Someone do the writing. I'm busy running the meeting.
Presence 4.
Okay, presence 4. So on top of the willpower, allowing it to be resisted for the night, I think there should be a perception awareness roll. And I think it should be something like 9 minus the successes they got on the casting. So if someone has 5 success, or maybe it should be something like intelligence awareness or wits awareness. And essentially,
I actually like the idea of making it wits particularly, just your instinctiveness of, you know, who
and
would
that
do
way,
this?
if you... It's not even that, because I feel like level 1 should be, or 1 success should be subtle enough that you kind of just accidentally run into them if nothing is distracting you. And that should be pretty hard to feel.
That sounds cool. Yeah, I think that sounds good.
And that way it's not like oh okay, they now know someone's hunting them, and I have to worry about someone showing up and killing me horribly with a party of bloodthirsty assholes.
I like it.
Um,
Is this a good
I-
time to bring up the awe?
We were gonna get to that next, I think.
Okay, I'm going to it now, and I will say that on this part of defining rules, I have no idea because I don't even know them. So my word doesn't count. You guys can go ahead. You are all smart people.
So just
are
to
we? Are we
conclude,
really?
just to conclude, if I understood Chris with the perception awareness, so or wits awareness, as think we're going. So
Okay, we
basically,
can use an example. Kurt uses Presence 4 on you, gets 2 successes. You roll Wits Awareness at 7 in this case, because 9 minus the successes he got. And if you succeed with, depending on how well you succeed, you get either an idea that something is wrong, or you figure out that someone is drawing you to them. And then you can resist it normally.
This is a bit of a
okay.
buff slash nerf. It's a
Yeah.
nerf in that you could actually get enough successes to actually even possibly just know who did it, if that's all right.
Possibly. It might feel
But
familiar enough.
generally, this is just to make it a bit more of a subtle power instead of a sledgehammer.
Yeah, no, that works.
Yes.
Because the first assumption I had with the wits awareness at being high difficulty low, I was gonna say that basically if you have no wits awareness, you're not even gonna pick up the summon because you're blind as fuck.
I mean, I have been blind as fuck with perception. It's turned out fine for me so far.
Don't worry, Vivian has managed to live in life without stamina going above 1.
You know, it's
Your
like
stamina
you
is
just
above one.
casually
Holy
go for a
shit, I need to
walk.
kill you immediately. I can kill you with I can kill
Oh,
you
for
with
fuck's sake.
Operation 1.
I am very aware.
Accidentally just do a shadow thing. and
Summon
just
tentacles.
start
Stupid is dead.
Look, somebody already accidentally torped me, okay?
Guys,
Byron has a sub. Oh,
please. So, let me just read it out, so we are on the same page. Those near the vampire suddenly desire to be closer to her and become receptive to her point of view. Awe is extremely useful for mass communication. It matters little what is said. The hearts of those affected lean towards the vampire's opinion. The weak want to agree with her, even if the strong-willed resist. They soon find themselves outnumbered. Awe can turn a chancy deliberation into a certain resolution in the vampire's favor almost before her opponents know that the tide has turned. Despite the intensity of this attraction, those smitten do not lose their sense of self-preservation. Danger breaks the spell of fascination, as does leaving the area. Those subject to awe will remember how they felt in the vampire's presence, however, this will influence their reaction should they ever encounter her again. And then it talks about how many you can influence under system.
So let me just get 2 problems that I just realized after, the reading and things. One being, first of all, that it's supposed to be a tool for mass communication, though really the only point where you get to really mass communication is with 4 successes or 5 successes in terms of mass.
Yeah.
We do
And
that sometimes.
My suggestion might be to treat it similar to how Sanctity is supposed to give you the benefit of the doubt, where they just give what you're saying the benefit of the doubt. Try to interpret it in a positive light, and just pay attention to you.
but the other,
I mean,
sort
sorry, go Demi.
Okay. But the other issue that I'm not sure if I'm just reading this wrong, but essentially, if they're becoming receptive to your point of view and they of course agree in that moment and blah blah, but then the moment they leave the area, leave the presence, it breaks and they realize it, doesn't that just basically alter their feelings back and realize that they basically did something they didn't really want to?
A lot of people, I would say, once they have agreed, people are retards, just in general. And once they've agreed with something or settled on a point of view, they're less likely to step away from it, because people have a tendency to cling to the things they've accepted. So not quite to that extent, but a little bit, yes, there is a chance of them bouncing back. But
I mean, I've always had mixed feelings on awe, personally. because depending on how you go with it, it can be really underwhelming or it can be really overwhelming, and it's just kind of weird.
I'm just going to paste. This is, as everybody probably knows, my pet love for the Dark Ages one. It's got a slightly different bit of text
Mhm.
about all there that actually gives us. It's the same system and everything. It's just possibly
Copy
more
and
useful
paste
in
it
terms
or
of
let
its
us
explanation.
know.
I have
Yeah.
pasted it in the tabletop games bit. One
Oh,
of the things
please
in
return
the
me.
second. No, you're gone. I'm sorry. The bit
Sure.
at the end of the second paragraph, in terms of if someone thinks the vampire's a treacherous liar, then or doesn't consider enough to consider changing his mind, but it can make enough to make him consider that perhaps just this one time the vampire is telling the truth. It's just it takes a step basically of attitude. So if people hate you, then they'll actually listen rather than shouting you down. They still dislike you and don't really want to, but they think,
Yeah, we
okay,
get
I'm
it.
going to listen.
I think we can go with this. It's essentially, yeah, we can treat this as let's say it's like a scale of 5, like 1 to 5, and a 3 is like a structure, and it just shifts you like one arbitrary step in favor of listening to them and accepting what they say.
Yeah, and
That yeah.
the low numbers in terms of if you get one success, it's one person. That works fine for one-on-one conversation. When it's a crowd, it still can be useful if you have 6 people in a crowd who were already even if the crowd was already positive towards you, that'd drive them to actually then be vocal as their one step. So that could help with the entire crowd, even though only 6 of them
Yes,
got affected.
we know.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, well,
I think that's a good way to look at it. By the way, Lambert, I like if that was one, the subtle D&D reference.
Was it? What was the? Damn it!
guys, I
Don't worry
hate to
about it.
say this, but you do fucking ramble.
Yep.
It's a good thing. It helps build rapport.
I'm not so sure, Epic.
I don't think it's necessarily the best thing when you've got this number of players in a game, but that's something that at least I personally need to work on, and I accept this. What next in terms of the powers, if that's all?
That's all There's one more thing I wanted to look at in terms of powers that we should discuss. Definitely should discuss. Two actually. One is dominate one in combat, and the other one is taking a look at thaumaturgy powers like movement of the mind and lore flames.
Oh, good, thaumaturgy.
So dominate one. Currently, we're treating it as it works until their subconscious registers that essentially, oh shit, this is for real, my life is really in danger. So, usually until they take damage.
I honestly have no complaints about it, personally. So.
Oh,
and then there's
mate.
the evading the eyesight. There's rules in the book about this, but it's been a while since I looked at them. If I remember correctly, and keep in mind I haven't looked at these since we ran Springfield. If they completely manage to avoid your eyesight, it's +3 to the difficulty.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a willpower roll at 8 to avoid the eye contact. And we've
Where is it?
It is actually based on the dominate user's manipulation and intimidation.
Yeah, then that's helped by the avoiding eye contact up to. Hey, -3 for thick blindfold or having eyes torn out. That's great. I'm still going to have to try to avoid your gaze. I don't have eyes. What
Yep.
are you doing?
By having these other things, you can decrease the difficulty of trying to avoid it. The biggest question, as usual with this kind of thing, is, well, what do we make the avoiding eye contact? Is that a reflexive action of some sort? Is it just something you can do at all points?
In the fledgling game, when Demi was being hunted, I treated it as a split action, but that was in the heat of the moment. That's why we need to take a look at this.
Which is exactly the best way to do it.
That is my biggest question about that.
I think going with that, you can just do it, but you can just from anybody just go, I don't want to see you. You can do it completely by closing eyes, which has more penalties. Just avoiding where somebody's looking, you can do it, but is a general social faux pas and not that great if they're actually trying to stab you.
Where is the difficulty actually in the book on how hard should be to use willpower to avoid dominate?
152 on the left-hand side.
Yeah, 152 of the PDF itself, but
152. Oh, in the book itself.
It's book,
yeah,
it's
160 of the PDF.
Yeah.
Okay, eye contact. Blah 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 blah. Difficulty equal to the dominate user's manipulation intimidation. Okay, so I guess we could say that we keep the when the subconscious realize they're in danger part. And as for avoiding contact, they have two options. One is either to take like a split action to try and just completely cover their eyes and take blind fighting penalties. Or alternative.
There's 3 levels of penalty there, kind of -1 trying to hide eyes, -2 obscured, -3 fully covered. Have it as the different levels of if you're just trying to hide eyes and avoid, that's going to maybe minor penalties in combat. If you're shutting your eyes, that's -3, but that's blind fighting. And -2 would be actually splitting an action to take out sunglasses and putting them on in the middle of combat, which is...
My idea was that you can just use your hand or whatever to just completely cover your eyes and get the -3. Alternatively, you could roll willpower to try and... Honestly, if you're trying to act normally at the same time, maybe this should be a willpower point expenditure. You can act normally, but then you roll willpower to just at all times make sure you're not looking at their face. Even if they're directly addressing you.
That seems to be a doubling up of willpower rolls, because they have to roll a willpower roll on this bit anyway.
There are precedents, like with presents, where you have to spend a willpower point to be able to roll willpower at all. This would be as an alternative option to just covering your eyes outright. This would be specifically talking about keeping your eyes or your gaze away from their eyes.
Right, which is the -1 level, I presume?
This would go up to -3, I would say, depending on how many successes they get.
Okay, I have an idea, though it may be a bit convoluted, but just hear me out, okay? Personally, I do like the idea of what we kind of did in the fledgling game, which was splitting the actions, of trying to, at one point cover your eyes and one point actually hit with the blind fighting. But now hear this out. While splitting, since there is also a case here in the eye contact, like -1 for obscuring, -3 for more obscuring, and of course, if you're obscuring your eyes, you're gonna have blind fighting penalties.
There's 2 as well. There's 2 as well. Please do not forget 2.
Fine, I'm just giving
play it
I'm
out.
just giving an example. Basically, here, the idea being that when you're trying to cover your eyes from the dominate and you're splitting the actions, it should be a base difficulty of basically 6. But the more you try to, but you can reduce the difficulty to lower up to 3, depending on how much you want to obscure your thing. But the next point would be, but the more you obscure your vision, the harder you have to hit. But the more successes you achieve on the obscuring of your vision, the higher the difficulty is for the dominate.
We're gonna drown in math.
I know, but we play D&D.
Not.
Here's actually a bit just a real quick thing. Here's a bit of a thing that would be fairly simple and somewhat based around that. So you can choose to make the willpower roll, which will just, well, actually, how about we just get rid of the willpower roll at all? Yeah, how about we just make it so that you can take fighting penalties, but in exchange, those who you try and use dominate to catch your eyes take increased difficulty on their attempt to dominate you.
So just leave option A and fuck the willpower like we've on a few occasions used up until now.
Sure.
Yeah, just screw the willpower roll.
Okay.
I am trying to avoid their eyes. I'll be taking
Damn it.
a 3 penalty on my fighting rolls.
Blind fighting only goes up to +2.
Okay. If everyone's okay with that, we can just go up to 2.
Yeah, that's fine.
Sure.
Okay. And then we have the Lure of Flames, for one, where...
Can I quickly go back to the bit in terms of difficulty of what you're doing with Dominate and what actions you can make them perform and can't make them perform? Again, I'm sorry, Demi, I'm pasting this in the
Okay.
thing. It's
You're doing the Dark Ages thing again?
the what thing?
Okay.
Oh yes, using the one that
Okay.
this one you can't do things in dangerous
We are aware of
situations.
it. We are trying. We're
Yeah.
trying to take it into account. We know these rules exist.
Sure. I was just saying that it increase using a scaling difficulty when the command is in a situation. Yeah, sure. Okay.
Okay. I guess I'm gonna ask it this way. Does anyone have a problem with how the Lure of Flames is currently house ruled? Namely, that you only have one fire that you're actively feeding at a time, and that once you actually hit the target with it, it latches on, and you can just keep feeding blood points into it.
I mean, the other option is making more and more fires all the time.
More fire.
Okay, also, a second question. Should feeding blood into a fire that's already latched on be a reflexive action, or should it take your actual combat action?
I think it would be reflexive.
Because currently
Yeah.
you have to actively feed it in.
I'm a little torn. I admit I'm a little torn.
To answer that question, let me ask on a sort of a similar discipline. Obtenebration 3, do you feed your tentacles reflexively or do you take an action for it?
Please
You
don't use
don't-
comparisons to Obtenebration.
You don't
Obtenebration.
feed your
That's
tentacles.
unfair.
You can't feed tentacles. Once you've cast it, you've cast it. You can't then.
No, you
increase
can.
blood points.
You can't
you can
totally
add-
feed your tentacles.
You can add blood
Yes.
points to them for more for strength and dex.
I thought that was only. Huh.
You can do that.
I think that was during casting.
Nope, it is not.
It's a rarely
is
used
something
rule,
you
but
can
yes,
do.
it's during when they're actually
Well,
there.
this is clearly a discussion we need to have because, funnily enough, Epic, I'm gonna tell you a secret. When the ST says that he works in one way, it tends to be how it actually works in that game world.
Huh. Okay.
But we can just say that sure, you can extend tentacles if you don't want to recast them, and buff them by just pouring blood points into them. Should that be a reflexive thing in that case?
I'm torn again.
I know.
I mean,
Honestly, I
generally,
always thought Tenebration 3 was just way too OP because it just lets you do that.
I'd be fine with it being reflexive as long as you have to. It eats your blood per turn every time you buff, even by 1.
Well, it
I
would
mean,
affect
that
your
would
blood
already
per
be the
turn,
case.
yes.
Like
You
unlike
buff it, of
Celeb.
course it's gonna do that.
Then maybe it's okay. I mean, I personally think that it's better reflexive because as I was just comparing to this case, which I thought was reflexive as well. So I'm on the reflexive side.
I mean, I completely agree. I'm pretty sure it would be reflexive. I'm actually just really thinking of it from balance / fairness perspective.
It's not gonna. If you're just you're not buffing all tentacles. You're buffing one of them at a time.
No. I know you're only buffing one of them.
I think it would honestly be kind of a blood hog in most cases. Not really worth it. I honestly don't fuck balance much.
I mean, most of the things that would. I'm actually just talking about having the tentacles themselves be a thing without really needing to even concentrate on them.
If you get incapacitated, tentacles are going away, or at the very least going inactive. You are telling them what to do. You're just spending your action on it.
Mm-hmm. That's just kind of what I'm also a little worried about with Lure of Flames. If that makes sense to everyone else. If it's not a big worry, it's nothing to worry about. But
at the same time, damage output from tentacles is vastly greater than Lure of Flames, even at max levels.
100%. Lure of Flames only has ag damage as its bonus.
And setting things on fire as a bonus, which is fun.
That is true. Setting things on
I
fire,
like setting
but
things on fire.
not the part that I was worried about. I'll definitely agree with the Lure of Flames. I generally feel like the damage output of Op-10 3 is really insane. I almost want us to talk about that and maybe nerf it a little bit.
Talking about that. But there has been some things on it, but talking about it might be.
Okay. So.
Lure of Flames clings to people? I presume that's part of the ruling.
Yes. You have to hit them with it, but once it latches on, you've established a mystical connection to that target. It wouldn't be the same for non-living things. It would specifically be for things that are in some form animated or...
Basically, I want to kill the vampire and hopefully do it before they can try and kill me.
It's feeding into that fluff bit where presumably some Tremere think they're conjured from hell. So I'm kind of headcanoned it and ruled it to some extent like it's a fire that's hungry to actually kill. So it sticks to the target.
Normally and...
Okay.
I'm having lots of issues with the wording here. I'm just going to say, yeah, go with your interpretation because that seems more a fairly good and consistent thing. While what I'm reading here is,
yeah, that's it. Yeah, was I think it was our very first house ruling.
Yeah.
Look,
it's not even clear why it's overturned when as soon as it's out of your hand, it's no longer.
It would still burn you, and it is still out of your control. Other than the simple fact that you can choose whether to keep feeding it blood.
Yes, that's your ruling. I was meaning that the core rules are unclear.
They are. Okay, if we are able to move on. Movement of the mind and the ability to animate weapons to attack people. The book only covers rules for just chucking stuff at people.
Jedi mind
So what you're
trick.
saying is we want to make movement of the mind more awesome?
There is fluff that says that presumably, quote unquote, skilled practitioners can animate weapons around their house. But at the same time,
On the one hand, I know of a path that does something very similar to a better degree already. On the other hand, that sounds really cool.
Manipulated as if she
What
held
is that again?
them. Spin, juggled, thrown.
But yeah, Epic. Which path was that again? I don't remember all of them. There's a few.
Movement of the mind.
There's
Oh wait, no, better one.
there, I'm trying to remember. It was either like Path of Nature or Path of almost like the Hearth or something. One of something allows you to animate your furniture to hit people.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
I know the one. I think we've talked about it with Jackalor.
yeah.
Furniture, go! You're better than
I had
weapons.
it on my beast dude. I
Okay.
wanted the anime. Oh, whatever. Yeah, back to point.
Fuck it. Okay,
Uh,
I think
we do need to talk about this just because it's mentioned as a possible thing, and yet there's no goddamn thing in there about what does this do? How do you do that?
you know,
So-
honestly, maybe we table this as a relatively minor rules thing because we have. My brain is starting to overload from all these details, and we still have to look at grapple.
Oh, I
Put
love
this to the
grapple.
side. Let's handle grapple. That is actually somewhat important and really matters a lot for what characters do.
But the grapple dimension.
Okay. First thing, I think we should rule that dealing the bashing damage, strength as bashing damage, while you're inside a grapple, when you're on top at the very least, should be reflexive. You shouldn't have to spend your action to just do that. Because that's a stupid
we-
decision.
Combining grapple and clinch then.
Not necessarily.
Okay, so where's the grapple? Just hitting.
284 in the PDF is where the grapple maneuvers are.
Oh yeah, you have clinch, hold, and I guess later tackle or whatever.
Tackle to the ground, soften, knock down, on balance, difficulty. It's going to just be hold or clinch really. Wait.
Okay, so
Bite.
we have actually been. I mean, we knew it was kind of wrong, but we like the idea better than not. But clinch actually supposedly doesn't allow you to take any other action besides doing strength damage to each other or trying to escape. Technically.
I mean, bite says within it that you can. Which is, yeah, it immediately.
Okay, so essentially, once you're in a clinch, you're using fangs, your strength, or trying to get out. It would make strength characters a bit less fucked, because dexterity is the god stat.
Yeah.
For multiple things, yes. Note that for clinch, it is also strength brawl, particularly.
Yep.
Oh.
Which is same for hold.
And tackle.
So I guess we just and ultimately switch grapple to.
Well, what's grapple?
To
I think
we just go with the default maneuvers from now on.
I think allowing them to do a bite attack while in a clinch
Well,
is.
that
It even
yeah.
mentions in a clinch, which is just weird.
I think we just have to consider the clinch wording they forgot to put in that you can bite during it.
Yeah.
As an
And
option.
I think
I think
that
the option should be clinch/hold. Hold is, non-lethal. Just don't let them do shit. Clinch is trying to actually murderize a person. Make
Okay.
sense?
yeah.
Tackle.
I think
Ignore tackle for the moment because it should almost never come into a thing, and we don't want to.
I see Kurt tackling
unless we
people
really
a
want
lot,
to.
actually.
That's a good point.
So it's going to be when actually rushing. So that's good. It's going to be either you tackle somebody and then you either try to hold them, clinch them, or just bite them, as well as possibly just kicking them while they're on the ground because you're a dick. So if you're actually next
what?
to them and wanting to hold them, you do one
Just
of those.
listening to Lambert try to summarize, I have to go with
Yeah.
fuck tackle.
Yeah,
Fuck
I mean,
tackle.
I didn't want to do it either because it's just fuck.
Let's not baby steps. Let's take a step towards that.
Yeah, I mean, do you even know what knockdown does? I do. I don't want to bother with it.
You need to roll like at 4 to get back up. It's fucked up. I remember.
Oh, and it decreases initiative by 2.
It's
On next turn.
I mean, we might as well start re-rolling initiative each round. Fuck you.
I don't want to. That's why I didn't really want to talk about that.
oh yeah. As rules as written, celerity should reduce if you use it for extra actions. Should reduce your initiative.
Yes, you technically should.
No, they
Because
don't in V20.
remember
That's
that.
Dark Ages.
No. It's that you're no longer. If you're using celerity for extra actions, you're not using it as points of dexterity. If you're not using points of dexterity,
Yeah,
it's
whatever. No, fuck that.
a bonus.
Yeah,
Fuck that.
Okay.
Okay,
That's fair enough. It's just that's what Jack was saying.
At the
Look, we just don't
risk-
want to bother with trying to manipulate fucking initiative while in combat. It's annoying.
Okay, so
It's the best way to
at
make
the
things.
risk of someone bringing something else up, are there any other issues, or can we say job well done? Everyone did great.
In powers, in all, are we...
Anything that is quote unquote ruining the fucking game.
I
Let's
mean,
buff fortitude again.
buff it again.
I will.
We just want to make fortitude the best thing in here.
Demi,
don't
I
we?
will have Florin come back, steal Halfdan, and have him make a pact for not being in torpor anymore.
Oof. That'd be funny. I'm like, I don't want to be in your pact anymore. You just fall down to the ground.
I suppose I still have I feel like it's a fairly minor one, but it is a bit of a, still a bit of a complaint.
Get on with it, please.
Sometimes I don't know what my character is supposed to know. And by that I mean so did I know about the whole meeting with the Nosferatu about to happen? Did I know about the judges? I don't know.
You didn't. The Malkavians in question didn't really tell Walda or you. They were bad boys and girls.
Okay. That's just it. Sometimes that stuff happens, and I'm just kind of like, wait, do I know anything about this? I mean, it kind of happens somewhat in some of my stuff with like general influence, and I have a lot of contacts. Maybe I know it, maybe I don't. So I just went on the assumption I didn't know about it.
Yeah, no. Okay, we can... That's something you can write in the text chat as other, housekeeping questions to not ruin the flow, and someone can either answer you in text, or I'll try to get back to you on a break, or I'll pick a moment where it won't ruin the flow to answer.
Yeah, I didn't really feel like it was something major or anything.
It's fine, but yeah, we'll just consider issues like that to go under the same heading.
Demi, question.
So,
How can I make my character better for you?
wow, for you,
Die
excuse
in a
me?
fire.
Yes, that would probably be my answer, but we have to look at it as a we. So, should we just first take a break? I think everybody deserves one.
I don't. Is that gonna take long? Because I think
don't
that
know.
I think
Maybe.
we. Honestly, I think we're
It's been
nearly
2.5
done.
hours of talking.
So I honestly I'm of the opinion that we just power through and finish this.
Okay.
But that's me.
How much more do you think we need to talk about is the real question.
I mean,
I'm-
look, I hear
I-
debates can take days and weeks.
I know, but it's an honest question. How much does each person think there's more to talk about?
I think we've
Or what
covered
do you
the
think-
important thing other than what Epic raised with Demi. Because they clearly need to have a talk.
Well, there's the only thing that I might raise is still Bacon and Jack are happy and included in terms of they're not want to focus on plots, and with Bacon not wanting to focus as much on the social stuff, and how that can be married to the more plotting heavy
That's just
desires of others.
that is kind of on me to try and manipulate threads and essentially manipulate what's happening with NPCs to give them opportunities to like have stuff to do in their niche. But I can work on that.
I mean, I kind of feel like it's on the group to a decent degree as well
Yes.
to try and, you know, I've been fine with just trying to somewhat stay in more or less more of a I come in to negotiate if necessary with, you know, supernaturals or factions, and otherwise, I try and make sure everyone is able to get into the city and try and find a niche of some kind.
Sure, and yeah, there is an amount we can either suggest or do to help, basically. And this is more in terms of if there's anything you think that we could do to help with this, or either Bacon or Jack could say, particularly, this is a problem, or when this happened, this worked really well.
I think
In
this
terms
can
of
be
marrying the two
summed
things
up
together?
in kind of like one or two sentences as guys, we should talk about this as we move forward. Please, if something needs to be talked about, raise the issue. Just let us know how you're doing. And the same goes for everyone, really.
I didn't have anything else more to add. We can have the Demi Epic. I could call it a throwdown in my notes. Okay. New section. Demi Epic Throwdown.
You know, I recently watched a lot of clips of fucking 8 Mile. I'm tempted to have a fucking rap battle.
To be fair, before you start, I mentioned this to Demi. There is something that's gonna happen that might end up with Vivi actually getting removed from the board. So please be aware.
I wasn't even. You know, after you mentioned it to me, I remembered. 10 out of 10, Chris.
I mean, I've known about that coming for a long time.
About what specifically?
Well, one day, long, long ago, you saw about having Wolfgang send a letter that has yet to arrive.
I don't
The
remember.
fuck over Halfdan, particularly.
I'm drawing a blank. It's a letter, but it's a different letter.
Ah, okay, no, I don't know about
Okay.
this letter then.
Actually,
I think the
reminding everybody.
Wolfgang letter came from Mrs. Archon over there. Wolfgang sends his regards.
Okay. You may proceed.
Right. Where do we start from?
Demi, do we need to give you 15 minutes to prepare a Google document?
No, I don't. No, I could just copy paste. Okay. I'll basically be Frank, Frank Horrigan, but I'll just be, pretty blunt about this. Vivian sucks.
Oof.
Why do I have a feeling Epic's not even here?
No, I'm totally here. What?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm waiting for something to be said.
I'm waiting for you to know that I'm here. Okay. Basically, my biggest problem with Vivian is that even from the fucking get-go, Epic, she's just built like a fucking tool. Okay.
I'm waiting.
Yeah, sure. I'm waiting. Usually I'm not going on a fucking tangent. Usually I'm trying to have a conversation here, so I'd like some input.
Let me just lay out your issues so they can be addressed as a set.
Basically, as I said, as a tool, not really fully role played, and the worst part about it is the mostly bullshitty justifications that usually come after saying that you want to roleplay, when in actuality there's just a lot of hypocrisy that comes up, mostly revolving around Vivian.
Okay, so all I'm doing are excuses to excuse any action I am taking, and let's see, parsing other pieces of that. The only thing about the character is being a tool in which to use to play the game.
Kinda, yeah.
Well, I don't know what I can say to try and, try and convince you otherwise in any way.
Okay.
Because whenever we've talked about this,
I have a suggestion. How about, from now on, when you guys are describing what your character is doing, at least if it's not something like combat, I need to do this, try and describe not just what they're doing, but what they're feeling inside, so we have an idea of the internal justification for why they're doing it that way.
I mean, I started doing that, and apparently it is excuses. Because I felt like he couldn't understand it, or anybody could, but apparently that's coming across.
The excuses that I was referring to weren't actually in-game, because even those rarely pop up. I was mostly talking about the wall texts out of character on Discord.
Honestly, and at the risk of making both of you pissed at me,
no, have fun.
I do think Epic is trying, but at the same time, the roleplay aspect is somewhat tougher for him than the other stuff, the actually being effective stuff. And I think to some extent, his ability to play to win leads through without him meaning to. And he's making an honest effort to be a good role player, but it's a work in progress.
That doesn't piss me off at all. It's absolutely
That
true.
doesn't piss me off at all either.
Okay, then I
It
managed
pisses
to
me
put
off for the
it.
reason. It pisses me off
Yeah,
for being
no,
so
because
reasonable.
I can-
How dare you?
Because
Fuck you
I
too,
can actually-
Lambert!
I can actually remember from even long time ago, which seemingly nowadays has to have a more profound effect after I remember it. But do y'all remember, like, I think it was like very early in the campaign, even where Vivian just didn't seem like Vivian. Like, I did tend to mention that there's almost like an evil demon behind her. And
No, that
was
the whole city at this point has that impression to some extent.
yeah, and I kind of realized, I mean, out of character, sort of mostly realized that rather than just Halfdan, because Halfdan was naive as fuck. But mostly out of character. That's how sort of out of character looking in character. That's how fucking Vivian mostly looked at. And of course, as time went on, and of course, this issue finally comes up, that sort of notion that I realized that very long ago comes into more play. Now, of course, I'm not saying Epic isn't trying to try. Like, this is an Elder game. Like, we did say that role playing is supposed to be on the forefront, and that everybody is trying. Hell, Allies trying. But the point being, like, you've mentioned it multiple times, but try and sort of steer yourself a bit more. You know, either the change is like really slow or not there.
I think you overestimate how easy it is to.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Maybe.
because it's
Demi,
weird
you want to know
thinking.
something true?
Sure.
I don't actually believe you roleplay.
Okay. Sure.
Everything I've seen from any of your characters has never come across to me as something that the character would actually do. It is something that you wanted the character to do.
I think if
Perhaps.
we are
Does that
going
make
by
sense?
that metric, you are, I think, for the most part, all of you on a pretty similar level. And honestly, I think we're at the risk of you having a big enough fight to get really pissed at each other, and maybe can we just agree that we are all trying to be decent role players and we're all still learning?
Sure.
I mean, that would be fine, but he's brought this up a couple times, so I feel we do need to try and get something out of the way of it.
Okay. Enough.
Okay.
Because
so if you could. Okay.
You've complained before about how Vivian isn't acting like formerly Humanity 8. And when I tried to talk to you about it, you just left.
Going on also a thing that Chris knows, you take a lot of energy out of a person. You really fucking do. But I've decided
that.
to actually sort of take this time and, you know, actually work it out. So continue.
Okay, thank you. Because I don't intend to try and make these unfun, or I'm not trying to like make this annoying for anybody or anything like that. I'm hopefully just trying to make sure everyone can have some kind of fun. But I just don't know exactly what I am supposed to do to try and help you out here. Or you help me out to help you out.
That's a very tough question to answer.
Because I have put a lot of thought into all the decisions underlying Vivian. I haven't done anything that I can really think of that would be just like, I took this action so Vivian would have an advantage here.
Right. And on your point of me not role playing, could you elaborate?
I'll just use Halfdan as the most recent memory, but
Sure.
the others to a certain degree as well. Halfdan just suddenly decided to go for the throat with his 50-year-long relationship with the demon.
Fair enough. That is a good explanation, and I think I did actually explain that a long time ago, but I'll try and do it again. First of all, that was a time where I actually dropped my humanity, so I was, in a sense, trying to also play a bit on the more colder side. Second of things, she was already sort of presenting a threat, and I'm not as fucking perceptive as you at all in the perception empathy, and I don't have Auspex, so sort of leading into her truer meanings was tougher. But seeing that she has been amassing an army of some sort, being a problem to Kurt, me being colder at the same time, seeing that she wasn't really going to back down, and she is a demon, and of course I have enough occult to know that while she is a demon, I know that there's also very much bad demons, and usually that tends to be a majority, meaning that if she's going down this route, who knows what's going to bring up the moment she truly amasses. Of course, if I was on the more humane side, I might have let it go, told others and things, but I decided to take it into my own action at the time because it made sense.
I mean, even as a colder, less humane kind of person, it would have made a lot of sense to betray her behind her back, if that made sense, rather than
That would
try and
require Halfdan to be smart.
Yeah, that also. I think you've noticed that while especially I was playing Halfdan, I wasn't a very behind the back sort of dude. I was always pretty direct with things.
But yeah, I never really thought of Halfdan as cold, and I honestly don't think of humanity as something that would make you colder or warmer. I think of that
Yeah,
as your conscience trait. But
I was
that's
mostly
me.
considering that on the bees being closer, essentially. And of course, with the bees being closer, there's also the rise of an easier instinct to just kill, in a sense, as well.
So I'll still vaguely disagree with it, but I do believe you had your reasons, and I don't disagree with them or anything like that.
I think it's
I don't your characters. I actually like how you play, Demi. Let me make this clear. This is just a response to you saying that I don't do anything, more or less. This is
I think this is
me
an
going back
ongoing
at you on it.
problem where we all have clear ideas of what the characters are thinking, and that's why also I go so far to tell you out of character knowledge, so you have an idea what's going through the NPCs. Because at least with you guys, I have very little idea what your characters are actually thinking most of the time. And maybe we need to work on, step by step, during gameplay, get better at communicating not just what the character is doing, but why they're doing it or what their mental state is. Maybe just take
sure.
2 minutes when it's your turn to describe, okay, so right now, Halfdan is really fucking angry. He's gonna rip this demon bitch's face off because she has been building an army behind his back. Or whatever it might be in the situation.
Yeah. The other part was when it came to the end of your character, and you just suddenly went with the demon.
Mostly going upon that was actually when I was in the ocean, not actually there that current session. I actually talked to Chris about that a bit, basically because I saw that there were 2 options that Halfdan could go through, but it was mostly relying on how much he could actually process the information of his actual being here in the city so far. So basically, one of those routes, basically seeing how much he's suffered, how much he's sort of gotten colder in a sense in the city, how much he had to lose and how much did he gain, which was kind of like nothing really much. Basically, weighing my options. That's why I think it was an intelligence empathy roll while walking down the sea, and I used basically that entire night or 2 nights, how long it was, to basically take a long time of thinking. But going after that, after realizing the information, that's when rolling really good as well. That's when I decided that I'm going to go down on the more of a certain, in quotation marks, redemption route. The other one, of course, was just keep on the vengeance against Florin because she's a crazy bitch.
Okay.
But yeah, he
I
did
actually
have
just kind of
a
wanted to hear what that one was. It was.
Wait, did I break? Did I
It
break?
was interesting.
yeah.
Oh, my bad. My thing went from push to talk. Basically, just going down the point of redemption, which was after realizing how much the city was just being bad for me, and how much actually Florin, in a sense, meant to me, and how much my life was better with her than without her, especially without her. It went to that point where I just sort of wanted to sort of a conscience click, where maybe I made a bad decision. Maybe it was actually better to just go with her and just leave the jihad in a sense,
Florin,
That
the
was
mistress
Okay.
of Stockholm Syndrome.
kind of
That made a lot more sense now that you explained it, and I am very happy that you did explain it. That made me a lot happier with how that whole thing went.
Okay. So essentially, starting next session, I should start encouraging people at every step to describe what's going through their characters' heads. So we can hopefully
I
be
approve of
more
that.
on the same page
Yeah,
of
I
what
mean,
everyone is doing and feeling
I
in character.
yeah, I generally think a lot about what Vivian is trying to think and going through everything. I mean, she's fairly narcissistic in a lot of ways, or fatalist might be the more
Oh,
accurate term.
that part I've noticed. And I'm sure you've noticed the NPC starting to play on that. Just through trial and error and
She,
seeing what works.
yeah, she does not regard level of threat very well because she's been such a weak vampire for so long. Just about anything can really kill her, so she's just kind of resigned to the fact that, well, you know what? If it's gonna try and kill me, it's probably gonna try and kill me and succeed.
You
Dougal
Okay.
completely
reads
and
in the
utterly-
background.
Yeah, Dougal is not going to have a good time, but Gregory got completely and utterly confused by that in terms of you're fine with werewolves being Elysium. You're fine with werewolves being in Elysium.
Oh, did they attack anybody? They must have been there to talk.
That
You
was
know,
it's kind of like,
there was literally a werewolf ambassador that showed up at Elysium when the park was still in active use.
All right, I remember that bitch.
So that
dude.
I'm not sure if it's come across very well either, but Vivian going and meeting people face to face is that's meant to be a sign of more or less I am trusting you not to kill me.
Nobody
At
yet
least
has
in her
decided to
mind.
just.
So, yeah, that's why Vivian does it even with, really powerful supernaturals that could kill her in an instant. She kind of does that with minor characters. That's just something she's had to try and get used to in her existence. So, threat levels. Well, if it's above like 3, I'm probably fucked anyway. So.
And this is who we have guarding the city against Sabbath.
This is who we have guarding the city against werewolves.
To be
That's
fair,
who
the
we are
prince is
guarding.
not actually supposed to guard the city against anything. They're supposed to keep the masquerade. Get your titles right.
This
The
is
prince
guardian
is
who keeps
supposed to
Elysium's
maintain
intact.
her domain.
Yeah.
As far as the Cabrilla is concerned, my main duty is the masquerade.
You might want to have a talk with the inner circle about what they think your duty on the Sabbath frontier is.
Yeah.
What do you think I'm going to do on the Sabbat frontier? I'm not going to lead anything. You know what? Fuck you.
Dracula, by the way, if you're okay with this, next week, I would like for you to be there for what we discussed. You remember?
Certainly.
Excellent.
But yeah, I mean, if you have anything to try and, I don't know, help me out, Demi, to try and, fix.
Yeah, that's the problem that's the thing that I can't really answer, because we also have two very differing methods of just playing the game. Like how I built Benjamin, for example, 3 weeks of talking to myself. Hello, I need help.
Uh, well, to be general, I often make my characters based on basically just a goal I have with the characters, and then I give more goals, and I try and form a character out of these aspects. What kind of character would actually go along with this kind of thing? How would they react?
So you tend to make very driven characters.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe try and think of things that aren't specifically goals, but things that Vivi wants, like whether it's luxury or to be liked or something that would distract her from just straight up influence, essentially.
Well, I think about that too, but that comes after. I'm just saying what I initially
Yeah.
do to form a character.
Okay,
But I can try and think of
Can-
maybe some other things too.
Yeah. Can I make a small? It might be an interesting suggestion. It might not. Feel free to say now. That's not very interesting. But
go ahead.
one of her main things seems to be the kind of high humanity in that. What would be quite interesting is having an explanation or written down what her view on having humanity is, what it means to her, what's the actual
Yes.
different level, and kind of what counts as something
That
that's
is
against
something
humanity.
that I had forgotten till now to mention. I don't know if you watched any of the Fledgling game Epic, but in there everyone has up to 3 convictions that kind of define how they view humanity and what their core values are. So I would like everyone to pick those for their character.
I was debating for like the last week and a half whether or not to actually start writing a small booklet of exactly why Vivian views the way humanity she does view it.
Yeah. Demi and Jackal are familiar with what we did in the Fledgling game, so they can tell you about how it's been working that far. And the way this would work is that we would be a lot harsher on humanity losses, but if it is done in the service of your convictions, then you would get a free pass similar to how you get one now on a lot of things. So for example, if you were killing in protecting the people you care about and that was one of your convictions, I mean Jackal mowed like 3 ghouls, I think. And he didn't have to roll for it because he was giving his family a chance to escape from the horrible vampires.
Which
it
I'm pretty
would-
sure is
That would help me quite a bit on just trying to keep towards what Vivian does instead of trying to worry at all about what humanity does. But I've been trying to avoid thinking about her doing anything based on humanity itself anyway. So
yeah, this essentially it would function together. It's like humanity, which is like the predefined things that just a general feel for being close to humanity, and then your personal convictions on top of it that can either excuse that, or if you violate them in an obvious way, that could also lead you to roll conscience at a low. I think Nyaxi switched one of his to never deny the need for vengeance.
From Never Deny True Love.
He thinks the fairy stole his 9-year-old daughter, his only child. So,
I wonder, is there I would need to look. Is there like a list of convictions or anything? Is there something that I could actually try and go with and ask about?
I will give you an invite to the Fledgling game and you can take a look at the ones they currently have in there. But generally, as long as I'm okay with it, you can pick your own wording to some extent.
Yeah. Because one of the things Vivian is about is actually a bit of something between karma and justice. I know what it is, but I don't have a good word for it.
Oh God.
You can think
I
about
just
how
wanna-
to define it, and also in the fledgling game, because they're still young, they are gonna get a chance to switch one out like every mission. For elders, you will be able to switch one out after every arc, let's say.
I just wanted to also ask, though we might want to not do this because Elders is a bit more individualistic, but in the fledgling game we also do have group
Yeah,
convictions, which is just supposed to be for the most.
I think at this point, since you're not really representing a single group and you're not knit together, right now it wouldn't be appropriate to have group conviction.
I'm
Yeah.
fine with helping Benjamin in his quest for vengeance.
To be fair, I'm actually fine with Benjamin in his quest of vengeance.
You're fine with it. That is fine with it, and there's actually, hey, I'm going to help you with this.
Okay.
I mean, I didn't actually help with any of the Nosferatu stuff. That's just stuff they did.
Okay.
No, I was-
That is a discussion of in-game tactics. Do we have any?
Oh wait, you were talking about you. My bad.
Is there anything else we need to discuss that we?
I mean, there's one bit with Demi still that I wanted to really talk about, which I'm just not sure what his opinion is on, but he's mentioned it, and it seems like an issue that maybe some other people have.
Go on.
So you do realize that when I interact with one person and interact with another, it can be completely different, right? And has different
Yeah.
connotations.
Let me just first guess. Are you referring to the old Kurt can eat, Sigurd can't, blah blah that?
Yes.
Yeah, mostly going upon, like, especially now since we're having a conviction, which might actually even be on for a better side. Like, mostly going to the fact that if you have a strong belief that one shouldn't eat Dabrois at all, I mean, it's kind of hypocritical. What is to just allow another.
Yeah,
to
but
eat.
Vivian's idea, from the way I understand it, and from what Epic has stated, is that people should get what they deserve, and Kurt kind of hit on that. Because Vivian herself raised, I wouldn't do this unless they had done something truly horrible, and he just immediately brought up Andy getting sold out to be tortured by the Sabbat.
Vivian actually saw how he got tortured, which was by Zemitzi, and that blame basically ends up square on this traitor's back. I wasn't intending to have Kurt eat him. It wasn't until I was reminded of this that I was like, oh my gosh, Vivian would actually view that as
that was
fairly acceptable at this point.
That was me manipulating Vivian, Demi, through Kurt.
I know.
Okay. But yeah, I was just mostly going upon that, the conviction. Like, if you just have this certain belief, stay with it.
Mm-hmm. And basically that was a case of, where two of her convictions were kind of opposed to each other. So she ended up choosing one.
I think the idea of convictions is one of the good ideas from V5, and I think it's a good idea to incorporate it in some form.
I agree. It's one of those few things I actually really like.
As I stated, it's really good for roleplay. Simply because it also helps you just... It also helps like as a guideline. Like, if you ever forget what your character, is like about or would do, just look at your convictions and you're like a little bit reminded.
I can just imagine have that. Ejaculate and evacuate.
Well, you're not wrong.
No lying to the group, do not snitch.
Those are the group ones.
Yeah, those are groups. Who the fuck keeps moving figures on the fucking thing?
Where?
On the fucking Elysium. Everybody's upside down. Who the fuck is this?
That's Lambert.
Nothing happened. Nothing happened.
Bastard.
Lambert always does it.
But yeah, I mean, there was the big difference with when you were talking to Vivian and when Kurt talked to Vivian was, again, Kurt kind of went and manipulated what Vivian actually would feel instead of Vivian just doesn't care much about appearances or how things look. She understands it's very stressful for you, and that made her a little bit worried on your part, but she doesn't understand what is stressing you about that situation.
So if I get this right, manipulation subterfuge doesn't work. You have to just aim for that manipulation empathy.
Basically, yes.
Honestly, I've gotta be
Understandable.
upping that on Kurt, because he has learned a lot.
But yeah, when Kurt was talking about it, it didn't have to do with, oh, here we're worried about, it smelling bad or mildly offensive. No, this is actually destabilizing. This is a bad time to happen. This could make things worse in an already bad situation. And Vivian was like, oh, you're totally right. I'll tell him to stop.
To be fair, they stopped pushing against the boundaries of the traditions. They used the boon to fuck him.
I mean, that was still fucking the Keeper of Elysium and basically against what I had asked them to do, which was not to fuck them in general at this point in time.
Nazis must burn.
Nazis have to burn with
Honestly,
perfume.
she didn't even have that. She wouldn't connect it like that. As far as she understood it, she was essentially asked to stop pushing the boundaries of the rules.
If that's how she wants to look at it, that's fine. Definitely not what I said, though.
Well, from your point of view.
I said, please do not do anything with them at the moment while the city is currently under the state it's in.
It's gonna be lovely seeing this misunderstanding clear character. Someone is fucked. There's no fuck.
There will be blood.
Let it be Nosferatu blood that goes down.
I mean, it'd be quite interesting because obviously in character, the most of the is kind of background plotting, but to actually have what the other clans think and why about this.
Yep, I mean,
Possibly afterwards.
I
But
didn't make it
just-
super clear, but Vivian definitely wasn't clapping when that was going on. She still thought it was funny, and that's why she was laughing. It's just she just doesn't get why that affects the Toreador so much. So it
which
just
is-
ends up.
Yeah, that's fine for Malkavian. It's kind of that. Yeah. You're a
So
Malkavian.
she
of
was
course you don't
totally laughing,
understand.
but she was not clapping. That was not good, Nosferatu. But she didn't really want to cause a massive scene in front of the Justicar either, so, you know.
Why do you think the Justicar was telling everyone to clap?
I mean, it's pretty hilarious how opposite ends of the perspective shift, isn't it?
I mean, I don't know. Isn't she meant to be the one who's very much in
New regime. The prince is apparently having a event which she is at least allowing that shitting on the Toreador. Do you throw everything in there and tell them to stop, or B, play along? New regime, time of chaos just over, city could still explode. What do?
But yeah, it's just a very different kind of perspective thing with those kinds of things, Demi. You gotta push different buttons to get a different reaction sometimes.
Okie dokie.
It's making me really sad that I can't eat these Nosferatu fucks. See them, it's easy.
I mean, the only thing I would say about I don't know. It is the one who's very focused on justice and only sires the sires her eventual replacement after he beats all of his colleagues in discussion of morality, then has him eat
There
them.
is that one scene that describes her, and that's about it. I had to pull a
Fair
character
enough.
out of her being Russian and her having done that. So, and I did not give her the judge nature. I gave her a different but positive one. So,
Positive natures?
Yes, ish, kind of, maybe.
ish, yeah. She's not a complete cunt, but she's still a cunt. She's as uncunty as I could make her reasonably, essentially. Given everything. But yeah, is there anything else we need to discuss before we finish?
Uh,
Jekyll or Bacon?
Don't think so. What I missed while I was eating, we finished without the discipline talk and started on characters.
Oh god.
Bacon,
Um,
you're gonna need to pick 3 convictions to...
No, that part I got. I
Okay.
arrived back like when we are.
Okay,
Demi
good.
was explaining why Halfdan did Halfdan stuff.
Then you should be okay. Yeah. But,
I have nothing to add.
okay.
Only that I managed to fix the problem on my code.
Well done.
did you have anything to add about how to make the game work better for you and Jack in terms of not wanting to do planning social interaction stuff as much, but then not be excluded or fucked over because of it?
Yeah,
I get the feeling that
That's
Jackalor
going-
wants to some extent, do the planning, at least from how he was playing William. He wants to do it in a way where we help him not get fucked when it goes wrong.
it just feels like that's very hard to do with everyone being fairly independent instead of,
Out of character,
trying to
as
form...
in,
Ah,
yeah, not necessarily being best
Okay.
of friends in character, but
I'm more than happy to help out of character if anyone wants, as long as I'm allowed to.
I have no problem on even doing the interactions, as the game is the way that I have to train talking with people. Weirdly enough, you guys are my social interaction classes.
you poor sod.
I'm bad with talking with people.
So am I.
It's a thing you learn. It's a thing you learn. But yeah, he's just
I-
trying to
I
make
really
sure
love
that
really
it's
hope-
not.
Okay. Jackalor, anything else we need?
Not nothing I can come up with in mind right now, at least.
Okay. Then, gentlemen, next week, William's triumphant return.
Wait, what?
Surprise!
Surprise, motherfuckers.
Well, there's still gonna be a scene for flavor where we are gonna see William at the tribunal, but you're gonna be okay.
Actually, there was one more bit, and it was actually in Demi's notes, and I just remembered it now.
Okay.
Should we try and revert back to how we initially did the character creation? I thought
Do
that was a
you-
lot of fun.
It was, but we spent
finding
4
time is hard.
sessions on 5 characters, I think.
I know, it takes a long time.
It's between arcs, maybe, but during an arc, I just don't see us fitting it.
My just maybe a suggestion then for characters that come during an arc. Maybe not being forced to do everything in a single day. Like if we're free, just have some talks here and there, maybe. spread it out?
We can try and find a decent middle ground, sure, but
Okay, yeah.
yeah, just from my end, if I get into a text or voice chat, I have like 4 hours after I get home from work, and I don't want to spend 3 of them just talking to you fucks. I need to decompress after a work day.
Rude.
That makes me feel sad. He doesn't like us at all.
I
Not
just
willing to spend 3 hours with us every day.
He doesn't even love players.
okay. Fuck all of you.
I mean, yeah, being STing. This is kind of you have to put much more time in and everything. And jokes aside, actually not jokes aside, we will make jokes about this, but otherwise,
I thought we
Yeah.
were friends, Chris.
Wow.
see,
Wow. Are you
I thought we were
fucking
all friends,
oblivious,
Apparently
Bacon?
I'm wrong.
There goes your cocaine contact, Chris.
Guess I'm gonna have to be a white supremacist.
Oh no.
Okay,
that ends badly for everyone.
if that's it for everyone, I think we can end recording here.
Should I also end the recording and send the script if it works?
You may, if everyone is okay and we decide to publish this, you may post a transcript in tabletop.
Okay, I'll stop now, and I can also post a transcript remotely and everything. But yeah, let's see
Yeah.
how this goes.
Okay,
I
so
think that went fairly well.
okay,
Yeah,
as far as
like,
I'm gonna
very
stop the
well still.
recording then, and we can finish wrapping.